I like to do this video on a book review of something that I used to look through a lot of times when I was a kid. Back in the 80s and early 90s, you had on television advertised constantly for Time Life books. And Time Life books were a series of books based on a theme, and you would order them, and they would bring in one book a month, each correlating with that theme. It came with all times, home repair, computer stuff. A lot of it's history or science. My father got the Time Life books of Planet Earth, where it talked about all sorts of things that happen on the Earth, from weather, underground caves, and minerals and such. But my mother, on the other hand, got the Time Life books called the Enchanted World, and that is a 21-volume set that has all the mythology and folklore and fairy tales from around the world. So a lot of the classics you hear, some of them you probably never heard of. But I've looked through all these as a kid and never really read too much of them, except for small captions here and there. But I'm going to review some of the ones that I've collected. And here are some I got recently from Amazon. You have like gods and goddesses. Talking about the various sorts of pantheons, the famous ones anyway. You have your Greek myth, one chapter for Egyptian, the Norse myth, and one for one of the Asian cultures. 3 of the volumes deal with horror stories, like Ghost and Tales of Terror, and or night creatures. Now these ones I just showed you here are gifts from my mother. It says that she has most of them. She stopped just before the last volume. If she knew that was the last volume, then she probably would have got it to complete the collection. But she stopped due to financial troubles at the time. But the thing is, you didn't know how many volumes were in a set. Once you ordered the series, you just keep collecting them till you're stopped paying for it or what have you. But these are my personal ones. These I got from used bookstores, but you can get these on Amazon, like the ones I just showed you before. And you can get them all, as I said, the 21 volumes. I put a link down below to show you which volumes exist. But this one is the most famous one because it's the first one you get, Wizards and Witches. It talks about all the different wizards throughout the folklore. They'll mention Merlin a little bit, but others you probably never heard of. And at the end, you hear about the famous Russian one, Baba Yaga. Spells and Bindings talks about different forms of enchantments and such. And then we have my favorite, dragons, of all the dragons of mythology, Asian and European. And let me show you, a little bit of why I very much love to look through these as a kid. Okay, here I'm going to show you how these books are set up there, and I'll start with the first one that you get if you ever ordered these from way back in the day, Wizards and Witches. Sorry, I don't have the best angle camera set up here, but I'll do it the best as I can. And I found this in the used bookstore, but here, and you open it up. And what's really nifty about each of these is that the first 3 pages where they talk, the title pages, you notice a little bit of artwork. Like here you see the silhouette of a witch, and then it gets bigger, and then and then you have, as you go by, it gets a little closer, and then when you get to the final page, you just see a little bit going away. They kind of run like that through each one. But here, let me go over and see what we got here. Is like here we have Venom Midas from the sagas of Kalevala, I believe, from the original ones. But he's a famous one, and he's probably, I believe this character is one of the main influences for the character Gandalf of Lord of the Rings. And as you go through each one of the books, they tell, each chapter kind of deals with a theme, but they tell little stories off the side here and there, other little myths along the lines. And these are richly illustrated, some from old historical, ancient drawings to modern art. And this is and they tell in the back of the book on each page, they tell if you're interested in the artist, they tell who did what and where you can find them. They even give a bibliography sources in the back. All the various wizards and such. Sorry for the glare. It's kind of hard to angle this. But yeah, a small bit about Camelot, and Camelot's got its own stories and such. And you got these little in between the chapters, where it's fully illustrated and tells a complete story here and there. But these are just fun to look, wonderful to look through. Going through all these different kinds. stories and such. Oh, again, sorry about the glare. Let me get that up here. Get a better look at that. Look at that. And again, there's captions of these that explains what these are about. What's the story behind them? Here's a story. These are templates that talk about the character of Faust, and what have you. Familiars, witches, Oh, and this one of my favorite ones in this volume, talks about the little girl who was sent out. This is the famous witch of Russian lore, Baba Yaga. You hear about witches who go around flying on broomsticks. This one went around on a mortar and pestle. As weird as it is, but no different than a broomstick. She would eat young children. She lived, and a little girl who was sent by her wicked family to pick up something from her, suspecting that she'll be killed. Along the way, she goes up and sees one of these knights, one that's all white, one all red, and one in black. But then she finds the Baba Yaga, and Baba Yaga, it gives her 3 tasks. Oh, by the way, if you didn't know, Baba Yaga lives in a hut. It has chicken legs in it. You can see it in the background. Again, I'm sorry I say it so many times, but I have bad lighting in my apartment, so. And she goes through it in the end. That's Wizards and Witches. Then we'll go through my favorite volume. Dragons. And that's the famous art, that's a famous picture involving Siegfried of Norse mythology versus Fafnir, the dragon whose treasure he's stolen. Let's take a look. I'm sorry, I'm kind of sweaty on my arms. Let's see what we got here. Here it talks about the Norse myths, about the dragon that lives underground eating the roots of the world tree. And the first picture of the chapter, let me show you. Isn't that something? But the artwork in this is gorgeous. It's one of the reasons I looked through these again and again and again as a kid. Here it talks about various types of dragons. The wyvern, this is the wyvern, the amphitheory, the heraldric, your famous dragon, 4-legged with wings on the back. The lidworm, which is just 2 legs, a snake-like body, and I've correct the guivrier, which is an entire serpent. And of course, the next chapter in this book also talks about the Asian dragons, Chinese and Japanese. It talks about their life cycles and the stories involved in them. Here you have 2 men giving an offering, offering to the dragon up above. Let's see. Keeps going. Oh, this is one of my favorite pictures in the book. This little section talks about how dragons and women and are kind of involved. Let's see, like this one right here. It says, safe in the scented palace hidden in Kiev, the Russian sorceress Marina kept a dragon for her companion and serpents for pets. It was her wont to seduce brave dragon slayers and change them into harmless magpies or pigs or oxen. Marina met her end when a hero seduced her in turn, and in absence of regards, beheaded her. The succubi. It's just all sorts of little things like down the side, as well as the main text of each chapter. The famous, St. George. No, I'll take that back. Probably similar to St. George. But yes, he is mentioned. But let's see, let's go further than that. Sir Lancelot. A Russian folklore involving a 3-headed dragon. All sorts of wonderful stuff. And Persian myths and everything. But again, let's see. Let's go with something a bit more interesting. One of the horror ones in this series. night creatures. You know, and this one talks about all the creatures of the night here and there. You know, it talks about the Greek goddess Nyx. Oh, this one, again, because of the glare again, you may not see, you got this lone traveler, but on the other side, never quite clearly, but you see these shapes and such. Unwise was a wayfarer who continued his journey by night. In the shadows cast by cold moonlight, greedy eyes glittered, claws curled, teeth clicked. Some more of the gorgeous artwork you can find throughout this series. And of course, being night creatures, it's not surprising that much of the artwork is horrific. Night troll turning to stone in daylight. Let's see. What could this be? Well, I won't give out everything. I want to promote this book. You may be tempted to buy it. Let's see. A vampire. Let's see. Just look at that. Chapter 4, Way of the Werebeast. How shapeshifters of various kinds. You know, and of course, Little Red Riding Hood. This one is the original Grimm version, just mind you. Some of them will tell the original version, and some of them will tell the ones you're more familiar with. That's the way how folklore is. Beauty and the Beast. It's a beautiful picture there. Oh, for those who are in Japanese mythology, the Kitsune, or Kitsune. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Never quite heard it in the proper way. But it talks the story of her and all the damage she has done. And again, you want to know a story? Pick up a volume. That's Night Creatures. And at the end. And we'll go over Gods and Goddesses, final. It shows two of the Norse gods riding on horses throughout the clouds or through the rocks and such. But this one is the final volume. My mother never got this one. But you know, so I bought this for her so she could complete her set from Egyptian mythology. You know, the first chapter deals with all the Egyptian myths, the stories of the gods here, and main events that happen with them. Let's see. Oh. And then we get the next chapter, which eventually evolved to Greek myths. And I kind of skipped too far. Let's see. Yeah, it talks about. Yeah. Chapter 2, the passions of Olympus, of various gods here and there. Talks about how the gods of Olympus got started. Some of the adventures they did. Where did some of them come from? The birth of Apollo. No, take it back. Dionysus. She was born from Zeus's leg. This one talks about the Celtic queen of death, Celtic god of death, or goddess of death, and the forms that she takes. And denizens of eternity. Talks about the Asian cultures of India. The Kali, Queen of Death and Terror. And then we got the final chapter of the Norse gods, of Great Odin. Arthur Rackham did the illustrations for this section. You got Thor, the goddess Freya, who gave the golden apples to keep the gods immortal. Frigga, or Frigg. wife of Odin. Yeah, Odin it was. Odin in his traveling disguise. You know, again, this is just some examples of the wonderful artwork that accompany these stories. But anyway, that's not all of them I have to show, but those are samples. But if you like them, yeah, go ahead and check them out. So as you can see, this is a wonderful set to look into if you love mythology, if you love folklore and fairy tales, and get these 20. If you can find all 21 of these volumes, if you look hard enough, there are some places that just sell the entire set, and at very reasonable price. $200 to $300 if you look hard enough, and it'll be in good condition. And now I got some of these as I got. The 3 horror books and the Gods and Goddesses are for my mother. Her 3 horror ones are falling apart, and the Gods and Goddesses is one she doesn't have, so I want to give her those to complete her set. And for me, I'll pick up whatever I can find. There's also many other subjects as well. I mean, the other titles include fairies and elves, water spirits, giants and ogres, The Fall of Camelot, The Lore of Love, The Arcane Arts, Fabled Lands, Seekers and Saviors. All these books fall into themes of different types of mythology and tales and such. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you can get in. If you like this, I hope you can start hunting down. Again, I'll the books, and I'll put a link down below so you can give yourself a checklist. If my link somehow gives out for some reason, well, they're easy to find even through simple Wikipedia. Thank you all for watching, and you all have a nice evening.